The sun was sinking low over the plains, bleeding red and amber across the horizon, when Elias Rowan first saw her silhouette, so enormous, so unreal, that he thought for a moment some mountain had uprooted itself and walked toward his ranch. He froze halfway through leading his last horse into the stable. The mare snorted nervously, ears flicking back. Even the animals could sense something unusual, something vast approaching from the dust-blown trail. Elias slowly lifted the brim of his hat. "Lord help me," he whispered. She was huge, taller than any woman he'd ever seen, taller even than most men. Nearly 8 feet, maybe more. But she wasn't monstrous. No, her frame, though enormous, was shaped with surprising softness, broad hips, strong shoulders, but curves as gentle as rolling hills. Her long braid shifted behind her like the tail of some mythic creature. Her dress, stitched from what looked like 2 quilts joined together, fluttered around her towering legs as she took another cautious, heavy step. And her eyes, they were lowered, shy, as if she feared him. He blinked, confused. People usually stared at him. He was the awkward one, the too quiet rancher who barely spoke unless spoken to. He wasn't used to anyone, especially not a giant woman, looking nervous in front of him. She paused at the gate, clutching a burlap sack against her chest. The fence bowed as she leaned one large hand on it for balance. She was trying to make herself smaller, shrinking despite the fact that she could never truly shrink. Not someone her size. Elias swallowed. "Can I help you, miss?" Her cheeks flushed a warm, rosy color. She ducked her head so fast that her braid swung around and nearly hit the fence. I'm Mara," she murmured in a voice deeper than most women's but trembling like a violin string. "My mama sent me. I'm the bride." Elias nearly dropped the horse's reins. Bride. He felt the ground tilt beneath him. Old Mrs. Ashcroft, who lived 3 valleys over, had been sending letters around the neighboring counties. He'd heard rumors. She wanted to find a husband for her oversized daughter, as she crudely put it. Elias never paid attention. He didn't believe in arranged anything. He was a quiet man. A man who kept to himself. And above all, he didn't think he deserved a wife. Not after the life he'd lived, the mistakes behind him, the loneliness carved into him like initials in a tree trunk. But Mara's eyes held none of her mother's harshness. They were large, warm, and frightened, like she expected him to laugh at her or send her away. He did neither. "I think, maybe there's been a mistake," Elias said gently. I didn't ask for a bride." Her shoulders drooped so noticeably that dust puffed up around her feet. She looked as if he'd kicked her. "Oh," she whispered, clutching the sack tighter. "Mama said," she said someone finally agreed. "She said you were the only one who didn't make a face hearing I was big. Mama gets angry when I don't fit places. Or clothes. Or people's expectations." Her voice broke. Elias felt something twist in his chest, a painful, sharp sympathy. He stepped closer, cautiously. Not because she frightened him, rather, because she looked so breakable inside that huge body. Hey now," he murmured. "Don't cry." "I'm not," she insisted too quickly, wiping her cheek with a hand that could probably palm his whole head. I walk slow. And people stare. And Mama says men like small women, delicate women. She says no one wants a girl who could lift a cow if she wanted." Her voice dropped to a confessional whisper. "And I can. Lift a cow. A small one, anyway." Elias almost smiled. Not at her, but because her honesty was somehow the gentlest thing he'd ever heard. "Why'd you come alone?" he asked softly. "Mama said if I bring a dowry, someone might finally take me." She lifted the burlap sack. "I brought, bread. And a quilt. And a carving knife. Mama says I should always bring something sharp because men love sharp things. I don't know if that's true." She said it with such guileless confusion that Elias felt his breath catch. This wasn't a woman seeking a husband. This was a woman seeking kindness. "Mara," he said quietly, "I don't think you're here because of the dowry. I think your mama sent you off without telling the truth. But that doesn't mean you're not welcome." Her huge eyes flicked up hopefully. Really?" He nodded slowly. A gust of wind tugged at the loose hair around her forehead, and she quickly tried to push it back, embarrassed. She seemed terrified of every tiny imperfection, as if one wrong breath would disgust him. "Come inside," he said at last. "You look tired." She hesitated, not from fear of him, but fear of herself. "What if I break something?" she whispered. "Mama says I break everything." Elias opened the gate for her, reassuringly. "Well," he said, "things can be fixed. People too." She swallowed hard, then stepped through. Her footfalls shook the dust like distant thunder. And as she passed him, the scent of lilac drifted from her hair, delicate, sweet, surprisingly feminine for someone built like a frontier legend. He didn't pull away, he didn't step back, and that small act alone made Mara's breath hitch as if she'd never felt acceptance before. As the sun dipped behind the barn, painting her towering figure gold, she whispered, barely audible but full of trembling vulnerability. If you touch me, I promise. You'll forget every other woman in the West." Elias's heart thudded painfully, not because the words were bold, but because she said them with such innocent fear, that he realized this giant woman had never been touched kindly in her entire life. The prairie night settled over Redwater Valley like a velvet curtain, thick with the scent of sagebrush and the hum of distant crickets. A soft wind brushed across the ranch yard, carrying with it whispers of coyotes and the deep, rhythmic clatter of wooden beams shifting with the cool night air. Inside the half-lit barn, the shadows stretched long and gentle, as if they too were afraid to come too close to the woman sitting in the center. Willow, the giant bride, as the townsfolk mockingly called her, sat on the edge of the hay platform with her knees drawn slightly inward. Even in a seated position, she towered over the old crates, barrels, and oil lanterns stacked around her. The lantern light warmed her bronze skin and cast soft gold across her oversized hands, folded nervously in her lap. But it was her eyes, those warm, doe-like amber eyes, that softened everything. They carried a quiet sadness, a loneliness that the townspeople never bothered to see. And standing in front of her, just inside the open barn doors, was Elliot Turner, the shy cowboy who could barely look a woman in the eye, let alone one twice his height. He clutched his hat to his chest, knuckles whitening. He hadn't meant to find her here. Not alone, not hurting, not after what happened earlier. Not after her whisper, "Touch me, and you'll forget every other woman in the West." He had run from that moment, his face burning, heart slamming in his ribs like a frightened colt. He was afraid, not of her size, not of her strength, but because part of him wanted to believe her. Now, staring at her silhouette framed by lantern glow, he wished he hadn't run at all. "Elliot," she said softly, not lifting her gaze. "You didn't have to come back." But he had, every part of him had. He just didn't know how to say it. He swallowed. "I figured maybe you'd wanna talk." Willow's lips curved into a sad smile. "Most men don't talk to me. They run from me, or worse, pretend they don't see me at all." He stepped closer, boots crunching on stray hay. "I'm not most men." "No," she whispered, "you're kind, and that scares me more than anything." Elliot's brows pulled together. "Why would kindness scare you?" She took a shaky breath, shoulders trembling. "Because kindness is the only thing I've ever wanted, and the only thing I've never been given without a price." His chest tightened. Willow lifted her head then, and the lamplight caught the shimmer in her eyes. "All my life, people have stared at me like I'm some monster from a traveling fair. Too tall, too strong, not feminine enough, not delicate enough, not human enough." Elliot's heart clenched. He had felt small all his life, weak, overlooked, unnoticed, yet here she was, a towering woman who carried a lifetime of hurt in her enormous frame. "Willow," he said softly, "you aren't a monster." She laughed under her breath, though it trembled. "Tell that to the men who refused to dance with me, to the women who whispered behind my back, to the fathers who warned their sons not to stand too close to me." Elliot stepped even closer. "Then they're fools." Her amber eyes widened, just slightly, but she didn't speak. He took off his hat and set it aside, running a hand through his hair as he found the courage to continue. "I ran earlier," he confessed. "Not because I was scared of you, but because..." His throat tightened. "No woman's ever said something like that to me before." Her cheeks flushed warmly. "I shouldn't have said it like that. I didn't mean to frighten you." "You didn't frighten me," he said. "You surprised me, and I'm not real good with surprises." She let out a small breath that might have been a relieved laugh. Elliot hesitated before stepping close enough that he had to tilt his head back just to meet her eyes. "Willow, what did you mean?" Truly, her amber gaze softened. The barn felt warmer suddenly, quieter, as if even the night wind held its breath. "I meant," she whispered, "that when I look at you, something in me settles. Like I've been wandering a long, lonely desert, and you're the first well of cool water I've found." His breath caught. "I've known strength my whole life," she continued, voice trembling. but gentleness, tenderness. Her eyes flicked down to him. You make me feel safe, Elliot Turner. And I've never felt safe with any man. The words hit him like a slow-moving wave, warm, heavy, undeniable. He reached out, cautiously, and placed his hand on hers. Her hand was enormous, his palm barely covered 2 of her fingers. But her skin was soft, warm, feminine. Willow froze, breath trembling as if she feared the slightest movement would break the moment. Elliot swallowed. You don't have to pretend to be smaller. Or quieter. Or anything you're not. Not around me. Her lips parted in shock. Willow blinked hard. Elliot, I don't want to hurt you. You won't. His voice was gentle but steady. Not ever. For the first time that night, she believed him. Slowly, hesitantly, she curled her fingers around his hand. The size difference should have felt absurd. But it didn't. It felt right, like something that had been meant to fit together, even if the world insisted it shouldn't. Willow leaned down just a little, shadows shifting across her face. I've wanted to hold someone like this my whole life, she confessed. But I never trusted anyone not to laugh at me. Elliot shook his head. I'd never laugh at you. Her breath shuddered. Why are you different? Because, he said softly, I don't see a giant, Willow. He stepped closer still, their hands tightening together. I see a woman who deserves someone who sees her, really sees her. The barn went silent, only the wind whispered through the slats, and the lantern flickered as if bowing to the moment. Willow lowered her forehead slowly, very slowly, until it rested gently against his. He closed his eyes. Her breath trembled against his skin. For a moment, the world stopped being cruel. Stopped being loud. Stopped being unkind. And 2 souls, one shy, one enormous, both lonely, finally found a space where they fit. Not perfectly, just honestly, and that was enough.